Let me paint a picture for you. You've just arrived in a new city. Maybe it's Paris, Tokyo, or somewhere that you've dreamed of visiting for years. You're excited to dive into the local culture, especially the food. But as you sit down to your very first meal in this new place, you find yourself in a restaurant that just feels a bit off. The menu is catering to tourists, the food is underwhelming, and you're left feeling like you've just somehow missed the mark. One of the biggest challenges we face when traveling is avoiding inauthentic tourist traps like this. Not only that, there's the issue of not really knowing what to order, possibly a language barrier. And then there's also the time factor. You don't want to waste your precious time figuring out where to eat, only to end up frustrated, disappointed, or even worse, hangry. On top of all of that, more and more people these days plan their trips by following the advice of influencers on social media, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you can often end up having the exact same experience, having that exact same picture as everyone else, and so it lacks the inauthentic connection that you might be hoping for. Well, what if I told you that there's a way to avoid all of this? Skip the tourist traps, the influencer noise, and get straight to the heart of the destination through its food and its people, right from the start of your trip. That's what I'm going to help you with today. So here's what we're going to cover today. I'll give you 5 powerful reasons why you should book a culinary experience on the first day of your trip. This simple strategy can truly transform your entire travel experience. Number 1, we'll talk about how it helps you to get out of your comfort zone and try something new, turning your next trip into a true adventure. Number 2, I'll show you how booking early gives you access to local experts who can help to guide you to travel more confidently for your whole trip. Number 3, we'll dive into the cultural insights that you gain through food, helping you to travel deeper and more meaningfully. Number 4, I'll explain how this approach can be surprisingly cost-effective, helping you to avoid bad meals and get the most value out of your trip. Number 5, I'll share how these experiences are an opportunity to meet like-minded travelers, whether you're traveling solo, with your partner, your family, or in a group. And stick around to the end because I'll introduce you to a free resource that will help you to maximize your next trip before, during, and after. Now, before we dive in, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Malia Yoshioka. I was born and raised in Hawaii, and I've been lucky enough to turn my passion for food and travel into a career. I was a former food tour guide in Honolulu, and I'm also a Lonely Planet co-author to the guidebook on Maui, which is my hometown. In addition to that, I've written for publications like Hawaii Magazine and the Washington Post. I've also been quoted as an expert traveler in Food and Wine and Forbes. I've traveled to 43 countries, and I truly practice what I preach. Everywhere I go, I book a culinary experience, whether it's a cooking class, a food tour, a market visit, or some kind of tasting. It's how I orient myself when I travel, and it's become my favorite way to connect with locals. These experiences aren't just about food. They're about discovering the culture and the stories behind the meals. That's why I'm so excited to share these tips with you today. Let's start with reason number 1, getting out of your comfort zone and trying something new. Travel is all about adventure, but how often do we find ourselves playing it safe, especially when it comes to food? It's so easy to stick with dishes that we already know and feel comfortable with. Booking a culinary experience on the first day of your trip pushes you to explore the unknown right away. You're opening yourself up to new flavors, ingredients, and traditions that you might not have experienced otherwise. It sets the stage for a trip where you're ready to embrace the unexpected and dive deeper into the culture. I'll share an example from my time living in Istanbul. When some friends came to visit me, I accompanied them to a cooking class on the first day of their trip. For them, Turkish cuisine was a bit unfamiliar, so they were ready to stick to things that they already knew, like simple kebabs. But the class introduced them to a whole new world of flavors. Spices like sumac, pul biber, cumin, dried mint, and kekik. These weren't ingredients that they were used to, but they did help to demystify the Turkish menus that they might see later. The class started with a neighborhood tour, which was an amazing introduction to the different kinds of shops that make up every Turkish neighborhood: bakeries, spice shops, and produce stands. This helped to set the scene for what makes Turkish cuisine so special. The menu for the class was thoughtfully planned to showcase the diversity of Turkish food. We made olive oil dishes and meze, which represent meyhane culture, those casual social gatherings where food and conversation flow. We also made dolma, a dish that represents Anatolian-style home cooking. And to top it off, we explored Ottoman palace cuisine, which gave a sense of the history and the grandeur, the dining in the time of the sultans. This experience wasn't just about cooking. It was a taste of Turkish culture and an introduction that shaped how my friends approached food for the rest of their trip. They could ask questions so that they felt more confident, more adventurous, and eager to explore other dishes that they might have missed if they hadn't taken that first step. If you're someone who tends to stick to the familiar, taking a culinary class like this on the first day of your trip can completely change the way that you experience the destination. It opens doors to new adventures and flavors that will stay with you long after you leave. Now let's talk about reason number 2, access to local experts. One of the best parts of booking a culinary experience on the first day of your trip is that you immediately connect with people who know the area, the food, and the culture in ways that you can't find online or in guidebooks. Local experts offer insights and recommendations that give you the confidence to navigate the rest of your trip more easily. When you're in a new place, it's easy to feel a bit lost at first. Maybe you're not familiar with the local customs, or you're having logistical problems like figuring out the local transportation. You're also not sure what's truly authentic when it comes to food. That's where these local experts can come in. They can guide you to the best spots, introduce you to flavors that you might not have tried otherwise, and give you a deeper understanding of the local culture. And because they're local, you get the inside scoop, recommendations and tips that go beyond the local tourist spots. An added bonus of many food tours is that they often allow you to do a bit of sightseeing at the same time. Not only do you get to taste amazing food, but these stories are often walking tours through historic neighborhoods, markets, or landmarks. You get a history lesson built in, and it helps you to place yourself in the context of the city. For example, you might visit a historic market and learn about how the area has developed over time, all while tasting local specialties. It's a great way to understand the history and the layout of the city as well as its food culture. I'll give you a couple of examples. When I was in Greece, I booked a wine tasting experience in Athens. The owner took us through a selection of wines, but more importantly, she gave us incredible insights into Greek winemaking traditions, the different grape varieties, and even advised me on which grapes I should try in my next destination. Her expertise shaped the way that I approached wine for the rest of my time in Greece. Another example that I had was an experience during a visit to Kalamata, where I went on a farmer's market tour with the host from my Airbnb. He not only introduced us to regional produce and explained how different ingredients are used, he also told us what might be substituted at different times of the year. And it wasn't just about shopping for food, it was about understanding the local food culture and seeing how all of the ingredients tied into everyday life in Greece. Not to mention, he knew every single person in the market because he was also doing his shopping that same day. Even in places where I wasn't expecting it, like Cappadocia in Turkey, I found myself in a small winery where the owner insisted that I taste every single wine that they made. That kind of personal attention and the stories that he shared about how the wine was produced completely enriched the experience for me. By connecting with local experts, you don't just get a meal or a wine tasting, you gain confidence. You walk away with the knowledge that shapes how you approach the rest of your trip, and you're armed with recommendations that you can trust. Plus, having a connection with a local helps you to feel more grounded and comfortable, especially in the early days of your trip. So whether it's a guide at a market, a chef leading a cooking class, or a wine expert sharing their favorite bottles, having access to local expertise transforms your trip from simply seeing a place to truly understanding it. Now, let's move on to reason number 3, cultural insights. One of the most rewarding aspects of travel is being able to dive deeper into a place's culture, and food is one of the best ways to do that. When you book a culinary experience on the first day of your trip, it's not just about tasting new dishes. It's about learning the story behind the food and how it connects to the people who live there. Food reflects traditions, history, and the everyday lives of locals. By experiencing food through a culinary class, a market visit, or a home-cooked meal, you get a window into the culture that goes beyond what you might see as a tourist. One experience that comes to mind was when I was couch surfing in Osaka, Japan. My host invited me to join his family for okonomiyaki, a savory pancake dish that Osaka is famous for. While his English wasn't strong enough to explain to me all of the history behind it, I got something even more special, a glimpse into their daily life. I ate breakfast with his family, I saw how they prepared their own version of okonomiyaki, and I felt a connection to their home and culture that I just wouldn't have had in a restaurant. I had a similar experience later in Tokyo, where I took a sushi making class that was held in someone's home. It wasn't just about learning how to make sushi, it was about seeing how food plays a role in everyday life. And it was a hands on way of experiencing Japan's focus on seasonality, balance, and tradition, all through the lens of a home cooked meal. In Tbilisi, Georgia, I took a cooking class where it felt like we were guests in our Georgian grandmother's home. Family photos lined the wall. There was a couple of kittens playing at our feet, and the TV in the corner was quietly playing the news. We learned how to make hachapuri and kinkali, two of my favorite Georgian dishes, and the whole experience was incredibly warm and personal. It was so much more than a class. It felt like we were being welcomed into their world. These types of food experiences are about more than just the meal. They offer a glimpse into the culture, daily life, and values of the people who live there. By booking one of these experiences early in your trip, you set yourself up to connect with a destination on a much deeper level. It's such a great reminder that your vacation destination is someone else's home. Now, let's talk about reason number 4, how booking a culinary experience on the first day of your trip can actually be surprisingly cost effective. I know one of the main concerns people have about booking tours or classes is the cost, but when you consider the value of what you're getting, it can save you time, money, and most importantly, help you to avoid bad or disappointing meals. Think about it. How many times have you spent money at a restaurant only to walk away disappointed by the food or the service? When you start your trip with a well chosen culinary experience, you're setting yourself up for success. You're learning where to find the best food, getting recommendations from locals, and making sure that your next meal is one that you'll actually enjoy. I've had plenty of experiences where a cooking class or food tour paid off in ways that I didn't expect. For example, when I attended a cooking class in Istanbul, not only did we cook an incredible meal, but we had so much food left over that we had enough for lunch the next day. They even provided little bags as takeaway for us because they knew that this would happen. It was like getting 2 meals in one. So the best part was we didn't have to spend extra time or money trying to figure out what to eat on the second day. All we had to do was find a nice park to enjoy it in. Another example comes from Savor Seattle Food Tours. I went on a tour there that took us to multiple local spots, and at the end, they gave us coupons that we could use for the different locations that were mentioned during the trip, and those discounts ended up saving me quite a bit on meals. Plus, the insider knowledge that I gained from the tour meant I knew exactly where to go for a great meal. No guesswork involved. During my time in Lisbon, I booked a tour, and not only did I get to taste some of the best food in the city, the guide gave me detailed feedback on my travel plans. She recommended restaurants based on what I was interested in and saved me from ending up in touristy spots that I had thought I would enjoy. She helped me to stretch my budget by avoiding overpriced, mediocre meals. The bottom line is that these experiences give you value far beyond what you pay up front. You walk away with insider tips, recommendations, maybe even leftovers or discounts that you could use to make the rest of your trip more enjoyable. And most importantly, you're not wasting money on meals that don't live up to your expectations. So if cost is something that's holding you back, think of it this way. Investing in a culinary experience at the start of your trip can actually help you to save in the long run, while ensuring that every meal you have after that is one worth remembering. Let's dive into reason number 5. meeting like-minded travelers, and making friends along the way. One of the best things about booking a culinary experience is that it's not just for solo travelers. Whether you're traveling alone, with a partner, or in a group, food has this incredible way of bringing people together. For example, I attended a cooking class in Milan with a friend, and the rest of the participants were mostly couples. But it didn't matter. Everyone hit it off. And by the end of the class, some of them were even planning to go out for drinks together later. That's the magic of shared experiences around food. It creates instant connections and helps people bond in a fun and relaxed environment. Being a food tour guide in Honolulu was one of my favorite jobs ever. The people who booked onto our tours were exactly my kind of people who truly loved food and wanted to dive deeper into the culture and history of the place. I didn't just show them where to eat. I shared the stories behind the food, introduced them to customs that I grew up with, and gave them personalized recommendations for the rest of their trips. It was so rewarding to see how people who started the day as strangers left as friends, bonded by their love of food and their desire to explore more than just the tourist spots. Food experiences naturally attract people who are curious and open-minded, people who want to connect with a place on a deeper level. And it's not just about the locals you meet, it's also about your fellow travelers. Once I went on what I like to call a food mission, which I was chasing down a recommendation from a local food blogger to try a specialty dish at a non-touristic restaurant in Peru. I ended up meeting another traveler and she joined me for this mission. And we had so much fun during that meal that we kept in touch. Years later, she even came to visit me here in Turkey. These shared experiences can turn into long-lasting friendships. So, whether you're traveling solo or with others, a culinary experience early in your trip creates opportunities to connect with both locals and fellow travelers who share your passion for food and culture. It adds a social and meaningful layer to your journey, making the trip that much more enjoyable. I hope this has inspired you to make food a central part of your next adventure. To help you truly savor the journey, I'm offering a free gift. It's a workbook designed to help prompt you with ideas for every stage of your trip, before, during, and after, so that you can really maximize your travel experiences. It includes practical tips for planning, staying organized, and reflecting on your food adventures in a way that deepens your connection to the places that you visit. Inside, you'll find reminders and tips for things like researching recommendations before your trip, staying organized with Google Maps, learning some key food phrases for your destination, and planning how to eat like a local, whether that's through exploring supermarkets, street markets, or seeking out local favorites. Since I know you're planning to book your culinary experience on day one, I've also added some journal prompts that will help to guide you to reflect on that experience so that you can really remember with all five of your senses. It'll help you to fully savor those moments and enjoy them for years to come. Many ways that we can keep in touch. You can follow me on Instagram, where I share my favorite foodie travel moments when I'm on the road. You can also sign up for my Aloha Friday newsletter. I send out weekly travel and food updates from Hawaii and around the world straight to your inbox. And for a daily dose of foodie travel inspiration, join my free Facebook community where we have food and travel lovers like you sharing tips, photos, and stories from our travels, and just kind of comparing notes on all of the best experiences that the world has to offer. If you need help planning your next trip, be sure to check out my website, shoyusugar.com, where I have plenty of free resources, lists, and reviews of some of my favorite culinary experiences. I also offer custom Google Maps, one-on-one consultations, and more to help you create your own unforgettable food experiences.